Hi, my name is Luke Duncan. I work for a company called IntraHealth as the senior developer. We have two packages right now that are using FHIR, so I'm going to get into them. The first is emNutt and then mHero. So emNutt is based on an IHE profile called MACM, Mobile Alert Communication Management. As I said, it's from IHE, Integrating the Health Enterprise. It's in trial implementation, and it provides components to send text to people using FHIR. So if you've got a device or anything else that needs to send a message to a doctor or a patient as a reminder, it will do that. And you can also respond, and it will track that. We named it after emNutt, who was the first telephone operator. It's a component of mHero that actually sends the messages. We're still working on integrating them completely. Right now, mHero just uses RapidPro. I'll get into that a little bit later. As I said, it implements the MACM profile, and it's written in Node.js. And this is all open source, so you can download any of these. So how we use FHIR in emNutt. It's just a web server that you can create communication requests, that FHIR resource, and then that alert will be sent based on any various plugins that you can add in. Right now we've got a few, again, for like RapidPro. You could also send messages to DHIS2, but it'll create the communication resource and also save that, and then if the person replies, it will create another communication resource, and they'll all be linked back to that first communication request. And then if anyone wants to get updates, you can query for the original request and any communications that have been made. And this is all just a standard FHIR server to handle that. So for example, here's kind of the workflow as it goes. You may have a device that has an alert, high blood pressure, so they need to send something to the doctor. So that'll create the communication request, and that will look up the practitioner resource in your information exchange to get their contact details. And then that will send a text message to that doctor, and it will also create the communication resource on the server for future reference. The practitioner would then go and visit the patient to see what's going on, or potentially however they need to respond to that alert. And then they could respond with a text message as well. And that would, again, create another communication so that you could track that. In the future, if there's any administrators want to find out what happened with that, if something else went wrong or they needed to track it, they can do that. And it will give them back, that communication request with the current status and any of the linked communications that they want to see. So our kind of bigger package is mHero, and we work in mostly developing countries. So mHero was developed as a response to Ebola, and we're using it in Liberia so that doctors and nurses can kind of respond to issues. They can send out broadcast messages. They could collect nurses and doctors in a certain region if there's a new outbreak, and they can send a message to all of them. And then there's lots of other workflows that can be used, but that was kind of how it started. So it supports two-way communication through their phones. A lot of places don't quite have smartphones or 3G connectivity in everywhere. So SMS is kind of the easiest way to communicate at this point until the infrastructure is upgraded. So the use cases and workflows can be developed by the Ministry of Health for what they want to communicate. It's all part of their health information system at the ministry, or again, it could be a hospital or anything. And it interoperates with other parts in the structure. So another software package that IntraHealth has created, and again, all this is open source, is called Iris, and there's a few various packages, but it can be used to manage your health workers, so the Ministry of Health can know where all their employees are, and that's kind of combined in OpenHIE, which is a lot of different software that we, with different people we work with to have a health information exchange that these developing countries can set up. And again, RapidPro right now is what we use to kind of handle the SMS, and that's installed in the country with a little phone plugged into that to actually send the text messages. So again, the ministry may determine why they want to send a message to somebody. It could be, again, an outbreak. It could be anything. And I'll get into it a little more details. The health workers can respond. They can make some decision based on that response, and then they could send another message. So they could, can communicate back and forth a lot more easily than they could before this. So for example, again, they could just send it to everyone in a particular district. They want to make sure that they have the right person. They want to make sure that they're a registered nurse, and then that nurse can respond and say, yes, that I am. We can also use it for kind of training response. So if someone's gone through a training, you might want to make sure that they understood what happened in the training. So a few months later, and also retained that knowledge. A few months later, you can go back and make sure that they know the answers still to those important questions. They can also trigger things themselves. So they may have a set some information they're supposed to send on a regular basis, but they can start it. So they could send a message to mHero saying they want to send their PPE information, and then that will trigger a workflow in RapidPro, which would then it can go back and forth. So this one would be example, what's your stock level, and then they could reply to what they have. Some other examples that we've got is someone may see what's your stock of various drugs, and that will be triggered from RapidPro or from the Ministry of Health. They can see they want to know in a particular district what the stock level is, and instead of having to rely on some other system that may be out of date, they can just text the health worker that's there, and then they can get a response. So if they know they need to send out more, or again, in response to some outbreak, they can find out what's there so they know when they need to update. I know this is hard to read, so I'll go into more details. This is kind of linking showing all of the various systems that are involved in this. So again, the Ministry of Health may select their cohort of health workers, and that would access a FHIR server to get a list of practitioners based on whatever criteria they want. And the way we've got it set up, there's an interoperability layer that kind of handles all of the communications and authentication. So, at the end result, they'd query the interoperability layer, which would go to what we call an interlinked registry, which would have all the facilities and practitioners to get that list. And then, of course, it would send back that FHIR bundle of those practitioners. And the next step is they want to get the list of available data collection workflows that are there. So they would get a questionnaire, the options of questionnaires, FHIR questionnaires that exist that they want to fill out. And that's the data collector would have all of these various workflows. And again, it would return a bundle of those questionnaires. Then they would start the collection workflow. So this kind of goes through multiple steps. So they'd pick the questionnaire that they want to send. They go through the interoperability layer to get those details of those questionnaires, and then that would go through mHero to actually start the workflow to that health worker to say, go through each question, whatever it may be, and get those responses that are then saved. And it'll kind of loop through all of the questions that there are. And then all of those responses would be, saved. So then once that has been, they've given enough time for everybody to respond to everything, they can get all those questionnaire responses to evaluate the data. And again, that all comes through as a FHIR server with the questionnaires and the questionnaire responses. Okay, so I know that was pretty quick because I wasn't sure if we needed questions here, but I can talk to other people about it later if you have any questions. Thanks.